Good afternoon. My name is Rochelle Trochtenberg, and I'm the California Foster Care Ombudsperson. And today we have a really exciting opportunity for all of you, which is to hear from people who've had lived experiences and are willing to come up here on the stage and be vulnerable enough to share that. And I know there's people with lived experience in the room, and we've heard from so many people today who are in positions of power and in positions to make system change, who also have experienced hardships and barriers to being whole and well. And so today I have some folks that are going to share about their experience. And this is going to be different than panels maybe that you are used to seeing at conference settings like today. You're really going to be watching and listening. And my encouragement to all of you is to have your pens ready because you may find some gems that you can take back to your communities from the stories that you hear. So we're going to sit up here and basically have a living room dialogue. And this format is really about allowing conversation to kind of flow. It gives us an opportunity to talk in a more meaningful manner that increases understanding, both together as a whole and also as you as participants watching. We're hoping to find common ground and reveal that in ways that are useful. And to just discuss issues and build relationship together. So this is our living room for the next hour, and you're all outside looking in. My panelists are going to introduce themselves, but before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we prepared for this. So each of the folks up here with me have some lived experiences with various systems, and they're going to talk about that. I might ask them some questions. They might ask each other questions. They might, just like when you're sitting with friends in your living room, go, oh yeah, that resonates with me too. So that's what you're going to experience for this next hour. They were prepared by giving sort of 4 guiding questions. The first question that they were offered is what are the systems you're involved with or you've interacted with? So this is just kind of opening up that dialogue. Then we're going to go another layer deeper and ask each of them to share something that they've have brought today that is meaningful to them. And so they each have brought an artifact, and those will appear on the screen when they talk about their artifact. And I use that term loosely and purposefully. Then we're going to kind of go another level deeper. So we're going to talk about this meaning or their story and this artifact and what it represents. And then we're going to talk about those systems that they've interacted with and what the barriers were and what the helpful things were. And then we're going to end on one of those kind of questions that some people will call like the magic wand question or using those tools of appreciative inquiry. And we're going to ask them what they wished would have been there to help them be successful in navigating the experiences that they've had. So we're going to just have a natural conversation, and your job is to really find those gems that they offer through sharing their story. Does that sound good to everybody? There won't be an opportunity for questions at the end. This is, again, one of those times where we just have to really use our best thinking and listening and applying that to the work that you all do. So that's just also to be protective of my friends and colleagues up here so that they don't have to also overshare or answer a question that might make them feel uncomfortable. So we appreciate you respecting that. You're welcome to come up and say thank you, but just honoring that they're also we don't want to increase trauma or perpetuate trauma, so just being mindful of that. Does that sound like something we can all agree to? I see a lot of head nods. If you don't agree to it, there's the doors, take a break. There's candy, lots of great candy actually, and the bottles of soda and glass. I was like, yeah, Fanta. Okay, so that's, we're gonna now kind of transition it to this living room space here. And I'm gonna ask my friends here to introduce themselves and maybe say the systems that you've been involved with or services you've interacted with.
Hi, my name is Beck. The systems I've interacted with are the military, healthcare, education, mental health, LGBT youth centers, and CalFresh. But the systems that I would like to talk about today are the Air Force, TRICARE, and Homeless Youth Services.
Hi, my name's Elisa. The systems and services I've interacted with are WIC, CalFresh, Cash Aid, HEAP, Solano County Children Family Services, Healthy Partnership, and Education Services. And today I will be speaking about mental health and education.
Hello? Okay. My name is Nathan, and the systems I have interacted with is foster care, housing, mental health, and the education system.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. Okay. My name is Christina, and the systems and services that I've interacted with is foster care, mental health, low housing, the justice system, drug and alcohol services, SafeQuest Solano, which provides domestic violence services in Solano County.
So we all have some commonalities here, right? We've interacted with various public service systems, some child welfare, housing, mental health. So a lot of commonalities, right? Yes. And each of you have focused in on a few that have really been experiences that have either been helpful or not so helpful, right? And each of you brought an artifact today about something that represents your journey or your experience. Who wants to share their artifact and maybe tell the story of what that means? All right, Beck, thanks.
So my artifact is that tassel up there, which was given to my dad as a gift on his bachelor party. My Uncle Nicky bought it from a reggae concert in Puerto Rico. And it was one of the only things that we took with us when my dad joined the military and we left Puerto Rico and we moved to Texas. It quickly became one of the only reoccurring things throughout my life. That little tassel was always there in the car window, wherever we were, be it our move to Texas, our move to South Carolina, to Arizona, or finally to California. Whenever I would get overwhelmed, or I felt alone, or I couldn't handle the abuse going on within my household, I would sit in the car and I would just spin the colors around on that tassel and watch them twirl. It quickly became a really big symbol to me of consistency within my life, of that thing that I wanted, because I wanted more than just a tassel to always be there for me. And when I got kicked out at age 18, losing that tassel completely signified like a huge breakdown of the one consistent thing that was going on through my life. But through that experience, I found consistency within myself, the people I surrounded myself with, and my job. So when I regained it, once my dad got back from deployment and I was able to come back home, the meaning had completely changed. Instead of consistency and being kind of a coping mechanism or a comfort item, it represented the unity within me that I was able to find. Because it no longer represented that one little crutch that I had. It represented how everything affected me and how everything I interacted with and the people I surrounded with made me feel.
So that's like representing also your experiences that with these various systems, right? And what it was before and after. And you're going to also, I know, talk today a little bit about your experiences before and after, right, this tassel. Who else has an artifact, or did anything she share about her artifact resonate?
So I've chosen this artifact because this is part of mine and my child's healing process. At the age of 19, I was homeless, found out I was pregnant, and then as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I instantly got a job to be able to provide for my unborn child. I wanted to move to Fairfield to be able to put my son in a more healthier environment because living in Richmond wasn't going to be safe for him. Sorry.
No worries.
But in order to give him that safe environment, I had to give up my job. So I gave up my job. I moved to Fairfield. I got on CalFresh and Cash Aid to be able to help me. They hooked me up with Welfare to Works, but I personally didn't need that program, so I found myself a job out there, and was going to school as well as a medical assistant, completed the program, then looked for employment for medical assisting, and then I ended up in a toxic relationship. I ended the toxic relationship to be able to find myself again and be better for my son. I put my son in Head Start. When he was in first grade, he experienced trauma within the school. He was hospitalized 2 times in result to his mental health, and the recommendation from the therapist was for us to bond more. And someone mentioned here today about how boys needed more bonding. That is so true. They need that. So our thing was, we came up with this giving back to the community and children who have been through trauma. So my son and I give back as in sending uplifting artifacts to other children and being there for parents, letting them know that they're not alone. So this is part of our healing process.
So you were a young mom, and you had to interface with a lot of systems. You mentioned CalFresh and CalWorks, and you were trying to find housing, and then you also found a way, not like in your own healing, was about giving back to others and lifting others up too through sending positive and powerful messages, right? So one of the ways that you have kind of overcome or broken down barriers is by giving back. Something we often don't think about, right, in how our systems are set up.
Because we're so stuck in what we're going through, being closed-minded. So I've taught my son I've taught my son to think outside of the box. We're not the only ones that are going through this. There's other people out there, so let's uplift them as well as a community in other communities.
So despite your hardships, you think that's a really important thing for us to remember in thinking about rebuilding a different system, a new system, is how we come together as a community to lift each other up. I think that's so powerful. Often forgotten. You're shaking your head yes too. And over here, anyone want to add to that? Not yet? All right, that's all right.
Next door.
Do you want to share too, Nate?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So this artifact is a house, and the reason why I picked this artifact is because it represented a home, and it represents shelter, and it also represents family. But to be more specific, it represents my family. And when we were homeless, we didn't have a home. We were jumping from house to house, motel to motel, couch to couch, etc. But in the end, we had each other. No matter what happened, we starved together. We just went through the struggle with each other. We cried together. Yeah. It was rough times. But we made it. Me and my mother made it. And my brother and sister.
Mm. Family really sounds like it means a lot to you.
It does mean a lot.
Yeah.
Family is always, even the word just resonates with me. Just somebody, it doesn't even, they don't even have to be blood relatives. They can just be people who you trust, who you put your heart and soul into. Mm-hmm. Someone you can rely on. Yeah.
So, I know. So, this is my son, Nathan. Okay? So, we're doing this as a mother-son duo type thing. So, here we go. Okay. So, my artifact I'm using today is a house. In 2012, we became homeless after being laid off from our jobs. After my divorce, my number came up from low housing in 2016, but I was denied due to a first-time conviction. I had never been in trouble with the law a day in my life with no juvenile record. I've been working hard to turn my life around and make things right so I can bring my 3 children home. So what this house signifies to me is everything that I've worked hard for. Everything that I worked so hard for in the last 6 years. Home.
Yeah. Home has come up a lot in our conversation. We've had some opportunities to chat before being up here, and each of you have talked about some way looking for housing or experiencing homelessness as a barrier. And I'm curious if there's things that have been helpful in regaining housing, or things that we should be thinking about when we're thinking about how to break down barriers.
Honestly, accessibility is a really big one, because oftentimes, like, your name will get pulled somewhere else that you can't go because your job is another place, your children are in another place, your life is in a specific place. Or like when I was homeless, I was going to stay at a shelter, but the shelter was all the way in Benicia, and if you were going to stay there, you could only be out of the shelter for the first couple weeks for 3 hours at max before you had to come back. And by that time, I had already a full-time job. Like, I was trying really hard to get everything straightened up and to be back on my feet. And I couldn't be out for my full, 8 to 10 hour shift in order to get what I needed, you know? It was a really big accessibility issue. Since there was nothing in Fairfield that I could reach, I had to go to another county, but I couldn't use the resources that that other county offered me because of the accessibility barriers, the distance barriers.
So we have to think about how do we get families and young people the help they need in their community, and not force people to make big decisions between housing and resources and not. Some of you have had some similar experiences in terms of trying to access different things and the location in which you live or where the services are. Anyone want to share that?
So I work 6 days a week at Hometown Buffet in Fairfield, and I have no transportation, and I was offered I was offered housing through the FUP program. It's Family Reunification Program, and I wasn't able to take it because I have no transportation back and forth, and I work nights. So that is the barrier. So I had to turn it down, which is unfortunate because I really could have used it, at the time, because bringing my family home is my goal. I felt selfish about it, but I just decided maybe if I just let it go, maybe some other family that needed it could use it a lot more than I could at the time. So, I had to make a big decision to leave my children in CPS for the time being until I could find a local housing.
So you're trying to reunify with your children who are in foster care.
Yes.
And you're working at night,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to keep that job to bring your kids home.
Right.
But you also need housing.
Yes.
And there's no way to cross that bridge, right?
No.
And then you were denied the housing in your community because of a first-time conviction.
Yeah.
That's a huge challenge.
It is.
How did you navigate that or make those decisions?
I just put one foot in front of the other and just kept going. I just had to let go. I had to let go, and I just eventually I don't even know how to explain it. It was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes that's just what you do, right?
I don't know, but I'm here, so.
Yeah, you had a goal, which was bringing your kids home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just keep going forward no matter what, yeah?
Can't answer that, so.
No, that's okay.
Woke up one day and a new life.
Yeah. So that's something though for people to consider that are in systems is not putting people in positions of having to choose between housing or a job in order to get their kids home, right? Makes me think of the judge who was speaking at the lunchtime and what she said about how you bring people together and really do what you can to help families rather than put them in impossible choices, right? Yeah. You're shaking your head. Do you want to say what you're thinking?
It's a really good point that families shouldn't be put in those choices where they have to pick in between their jobs or their children or their homes. But we also understand that a lot of the times that's where the resources are easier to come from. So we're not just nitpicking, we're not coming to stand on your toes or anything. We're just talking about our experiences because we know that it's from a system standpoint, like for someone who works in a system, it must be really, really overwhelming, the amount of people that you guys help out all at once, the amount of families, the amount of children that you guys see and help, and you guys try your very best. We just want to know what we can do in order to, kind of balance the scales and have us do like our part to make it a little bit easier for you guys as well.
Because there's a commonality I've heard. Each of you had to leave the community that you call home, or that you were really grounded in, where your other supports and resources were, and had to make some choices about leaving to get those, or not getting what you need and staying connected to the people that matter to you. So that's an opportunity, right, for us to think about how we could re-envision a system and break down barriers. So each of you have interacted with these systems, and you've shared some of your experiences. What are some of the other experiences that you've had with different systems that we need to think about in terms of rebuilding or reestablishing better help for people?
I think just people that are giving the services be more understanding and passionate about what they're doing, because the barrier that I've came across is that I'm dealing with someone that's not really understanding, like they weren't in the situation that I was going through or my child was going through, so it's like I feel like we were a burden to them and they were just trying to push us off. And that, in my child seeing that wasn't fair to him. That made him have even more low self-esteem. So someone being more passionate and them doing it from the heart would be a big help.
Did you ever come across anyone who kind of exhibited that kind of passion and compassion that you're talking about?
Yes. So I was having some issues with my son in school, and I had to put my pride aside. I had to put my pride aside and get a child advocate, because I'm the type of mother that I just want to do everything and anything I can for my kid. So I got a child advocate, and she is fantastic because she's doing it from the heart. And ever since we've got in contact with her, things have been just falling in place for my son, and he's been doing so much better in school.
So this advocate was there for you and your son. What are some of the things that she's done that have really helped both of you kind of come to this place of doing better? So
she looked over his IEP that he was on and seen a lot of things that were missing. So there were services that were not being provided to him. So she came along with me and my son to the IEP meeting and addressed it. And now he has the services that he needs.
So having someone navigate systems with you was a huge help. Yeah. Yeah. You want to share about that? All right. Yeah. All right.
No, Mom. All right. All right. Somebody who has been there for me was my Casa Worker, Dan, and I consider him my father figure, because he's just always been there for me. And he took me out to eat. He helped me up when nobody was there for me, when I was depressed and I had a lot of anxiety. He was always there for me, and he always cheered me up. And he was when I remember when I first met Dan, I didn't really know at the time what a Casa Worker was. I thought they were just going to be like another therapist, and I heard I was going to get a male Casa Worker, and I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a narc. So and I say this all the time, like I thought Dan was going to be a narc, but no, it turned out Dan was this guy who played video games, and he was into computers, and Dan's just this really cool guy that I really connected with, and I see him every week on a Monday. We go out to eat, and we talk about, life, and we talk about sports, we talk about video games, we talk about, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, Dan's just been this awesome guy to me.
So both of you have a commonality, which is having somebody who is consistently there, kind of on your side, right? And present with you. You want to say something? Jump right in. You don't have to raise your hand.
Okay, you say it.
No.
All right, Mom, you got this.
Okay, so I think something that will. I don't even know what to say here.
All right. The social worker that we've been talking to for the past, few months lately, she's been really helping us out, and she really cares for me and my mother, and, she has real genuine care for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mother was having some issues with housing, and what did she say? What did you say, Mom?
She informed us
On what?
on the housing.
You
My friend Nate here is quite a
God.
skilled public speaker, and Christina, this is your first time.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great job. It's
So,
okay
yeah,
to be nervous.
This social worker, she was helping my mom get services that she needed, and she was giving my mom information that she needed too. And yeah, she kept it really real with me too. So I remember one time I told her that I would walk home from school and I would walk everywhere I go. And she was like, "Oh, okay, so are you going to get your license anytime soon?" And I said, "I don't think so." And she's like, "Why not?" And she's like, "I don't know. I kind of like walking." She's like, "Oh, okay, so you're going to be one of them 30-year-olds that walk around all the time." I'm like, "No." And that's when I was like, that's when I started going to this program called ILSP, and they helped me set up a bank account, and they're trying to get my driver's ed and my driver's license.
Nice. So you have this new social worker that's just been real with you, and also encouraging you to step
Yes.
up, but also bringing Mom along too, right?
Yeah.
You all have shared with me before that she's not the example of a social worker you've had in the past. That
Yes,
she's
yeah.
very different. Tell me the difference between now and maybe your experiences with the other social worker.
With this social worker, I felt like I said, she had genuine, real care, and that she was gonna stay with me, because in the past I would get a social worker and she would stay with me for like a few months, and I would gain her trust, and then she'd leave. And then next thing you know, I get a new social worker, and then it just turned into like a never-ending cycle until I turned 16, and I found this new social worker. And that's at that point I kind of just gave up. So I was just kind of skeptical if she was going to leave or not. But they told me no, she's staying this time. So I said okay. So I pretty much opened up to her, and she's cool.
And with this social worker, we had two social workers in the past, and I felt like we were getting nowhere, and our family was lying dormant for like about 4 years. And then she kind of came into my son's life and included me in his life, and she opened up a lot of doors that I didn't think were available to me, like what is it called? I'm forgetting. No. Anyways, I'm just gonna close with this. I think she has been nothing but great for our family, and she is like a complete angel, and that's it.
God sent, yeah.
Earlier, you had shared with me, though, that she's done some things to include you that were different than other people. Could you talk a little bit about that?
She went out of her way to send me notification in the mail to invite me to Nathan's, what is it called?
IEP meetings?
Yeah, to his IEP meetings, and she makes sure that I'm included in his life. And the past two social workers that I had prior, I'd be sitting in the room and they would overlook me and like as if I didn't even exist. And I'm his parent, and I still have parental rights to be there for my son. And with this social worker, she's including me in this in this whole case all the way around, and I feel like a mother, and I'm getting my respect again, and I feel like, I don't know, everything has changed since she's walked into our life, and she's given me nothing but hope. So, yeah.
So having second chances, right? So,
Yes.
So your services ended, and
Yes.
you got a new social worker who still saw that you're a parent who wants to be involved in your kid's life and bring your kids home.
Right.
And so she's now inviting you to IEPs. She's keeping you engaged on all things related to your kids. Has she done anything else to help you?
Yeah, she's I was only able to see my children one time a month, and since I have been engaging with her, she has increased my visits to minimum 2 times a month, but now I have, in the last 6 months, I am able to see my kids anytime I want now with this kid, so it's unlimited visitation. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that means a lot to me, so yeah.
So she's somebody who recognizes that you love and care about your kids, and she's really helped you establish better relationships, better visits with them, and the goal is to bring them home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been that for like the last 6 years. So and time is flying by. Things are going great, and it's all due to this woman, this social worker. She's a miracle, and she needs to be. I mean, she needs to take over more cases so she can change the lives of other people. Yeah. There you go.
That's awesome. So, and that kind of goes, I think, back to what you were saying as well, like having that advocate to walk beside you, to believe in you, and to help you believe in yourself, and navigate these very complicated systems. And also, it's like your Casa, being Dan the man, really showing up for you. And do you want to chime in? Yeah.
Yeah, having at least one person in your life that's super consistent on not only showing you the resources that are available to you, but also like pushing and shoving at you to go accept them means a whole world of a difference. Alyssum over there, she was always there with me. She was telling me like, hey, you can do this. Hey, are you gonna go do that? Hey, that resource is available to you, you should use it. To the point where even when I wasn't comfortable with it, because I have a problem accepting help or resources from people, because I always feel like I'm in a position where I haven't done enough to deserve it. Okay, sorry. She went with me to...
You're all right.
Thank you. She went with me and sat with me throughout my meetings with Save Quest Solano, and which also, as well as providing domestic abuse services, they also provide services to homeless youth. She sat with me and listened to all of my options.
And I think that's a really big thing, like having somebody there to show us the options that we have out there, because a lot of resources that are out there, a lot of people don't know about them. And there's even resources that can connect together as a community that can refer out to other ones. We can all partner, they can all partner up. Like Alyssum has helped me before with my child advocate. And I had too much pride because I just wanted to do it on my own, but I had to put my pride aside and be like, no, okay, I'm going to get this help. And so that's what having that child advocate has done a lot for me and my son.
And in the past, you brought up a good idea about calling. There's actually a phone number that you could call, and it's Solano 211, and it has every resource possible, including dental, medical insurance, housing, HEAP, food. What is it called?
Like food stamps.
Yeah,
right?
and like food. What is that called?
Food banks.
Food banks, yeah, food banks and stuff like that. And Solano 211 is there and it is available. And I feel like it could change the lives of so many people if they would advertise that or let people know, give out flyers or something like that. It would be helpful.
So when it
We
first
can
came
get that
out,
out.
they advertised it a lot, but it's died down
Mhm.
within the years, and even other resources don't even know about 211.
Mm-hmm.
So if they all linked up, then we wouldn't have these issues.
So the people who you're interacting with in these systems being knowledgeable about all of the resources in a community is really important, right?
Right.
I think the judge at lunch also kind of talked about that as really needing people to be working collaboratively and together. And each of you have had these different experiences of either having someone help you navigate the systems, ILSP, housing, getting your kids back, IEPs in education. So having those community navigators and also service providers each knowing what the other ones offer is important, and getting that out to people. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the barriers. Are there other barriers that you've experienced that you have ideas for about how we can overcome them or break them down or change them to be no longer barriers?
So I have one that's military specific or specific towards military children. A lot of the times, and it's pretty rational, not rational, but it's almost excusable because we move so often, but the youth don't have enough time to form any connections with the community around them. So when they go through things and they get kicked out or they're abused in their home, they can't reach out to anyone in the community because they have no idea that all of you amazing people are out there, you know? They have no idea about the services that are available to them. If we reached out or even advertised towards military youth, I feel like we'd have a great increase in people needing services, because people often think of military bases as their own little mini towns and communities, which in some ways they are. But everything you do as a military child goes right back to your parent. You mess up, your parent gets in trouble. Your parent will know pretty much everything you do. And if you're a child who's suffering domestic abuse in a military household, the last thing you want to do is reach out for services on base, because the first person that's going to hear is your military parent. Another thing would be accessibility, having that barrier when youth try to go find resources. It's ridiculously hard unless you have someone in your life who already knows where they are, or you have access to a phone, which a lot of the times homeless youth don't. So having those things already commonplace on school campuses would help so much, free lunches just in general on school campuses, or access to certain services that are just available to everyone removes the stigma and the barrier of reaching them, because by not having to admit that you're homeless or lower income or a foster youth, and having that service just available to you, that makes a world of a difference in whether or not you accept it. If someone says, hey, you can take this sandwich if you admit that you're homeless, you're not going to want to take it. But if someone lays out a plate of sandwiches and say, hey, everyone eat when you're ready, everyone is going to go grab it.
Lots of head shaking about sandwiches. And making everything accessible, making resources accessible, not based on a certain criteria, but based on who steps forward without having to self-identify in some kind of way that stigmatizes you or others you. Have the rest of you had that experience where you feel like if you raise your hand and say, yes, I need that, you're somehow going to be...
Oh, yeah. In school all the time. Remember sophomore, freshman year, there was a question I didn't get on the board, and all the kids, they were doing their work, but I didn't understand the question. And I felt like if I raised my hand, I would be stupid. Mm-hmm. And it made me feel bad, and I didn't want to say anything, and I didn't want to get help. And I wasn't sure if I was just being stubborn or, Like, yeah.
Yeah. So it happens for us as like young people in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
And then also as adults and young adults and parents navigating systems or services and not understanding how it works can change our own self-worth or self-value in a negative way, and that shouldn't be the case, right? So how do we change that aspect to help people feel safe enough to come forward and say, I need help?
I think coming at it with a positive attitude, because vibes and the demeanor of how you come at someone is a big thing. Like my child, if you say, just raise your voice at him, he takes it as you yelling at him. There's certain ways you have to, for instance, children, you have to word things to children, or just people in general. You don't know what they've been through.
Mm-hmm. How we approach people, right, with compassion and empathy and non-judgmentalness. That all is easy to say, but much harder to do in the day-to-day, right? Yeah. So let me ask you all this question. We've talked about some of the barriers and some of the things that have been helpful or not. But if you were in charge today, you got the keys and the bank card to kind of say how we could re-envision how to help families and how to help young people, what would you do? How would you change the systems you've interacted with if you were crowned as the leader?
I think it's having somebody who knows their resources. I know if I didn't meet Dan, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know what Solano Youth Voices was. I wouldn't be here doing public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So really having those, like, having people who are connecting and navigating and just coming alongside.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any other qualities about Dan that you think are really important to think about? If you were in charge and had to, like, find all these awesome replicas of Dan, like, what would you want people to, like, what are those qualities?
Oh, man. I think it's a kindness and a caring and loving heart. And being able to help somebody when they're in need, that that'll touch somebody.
Yeah. It's like you were here for Tia Martinez's presentation this morning, right?
Yes.
And she said the antidote is love.
Yes.
Right? And like that human connection,
Mm-hmm.
those attachments. But we often forget as service providers that we're a part of that, right? So that's an interesting thing for us to think about. How do we build love into a system and structure that's not based on love? What about the rest of you? If you have the keys and the bank card today, thinking about your experiences with the system, what would you do?
Accessible resources advertised towards youth, because a lot of the youth specific resources that we have are advertised towards parents. They're not put in a place, they're not listed in a high school campus. They're not in an elementary school where a kid can look at like a flyer and say, oh, maybe I should talk to my counselor about that. They're not there. So the kid at school is just isolated from all the help that they should be receiving because it's all advertised towards adults. IEP help, it's advertised towards adults, parents, and counselors. It's all like the ability to grab those resources without self-identifying and like outing yourself, basically. Being able to see them and know that they're there kind of helps break down that barrier of accepting them.
So making them visible.
Yeah.
And on school campuses, you've talked a lot about campuses, school environments, and having things really embedded in schools where young people are. So that I think that's powerful. I think there was a panel. I know it happened. There was a panel. I have to look at my agenda for the names, but they talked about partnering. It was the second panel today, I believe. Fresno. Is that Fresno? It was Fresno. Trina and Susan. Yes. I see one of them over there. Yeah. You talked about partnering and bringing those services together, and that is something that you've mentioned today that's resonated with you. Really, how do we bring those into school environments where kids are and where their parents are?
Mom? Nope. No? All right.
So my question is, if you were in charge today, you get the keys and all the decision-making power and the bank card and the whole deal, you're in charge of redesigning the system, or the systems you've interacted with, what would you do to completely reshape it to meet the needs that you experience, to overcome the barriers you experienced?
I would make it a more welcoming environment, not to where they're afraid to come for the services or feel like they're a burden to come and ask for the help.
And what would that look like more? What would that, like, if you were to walk in, what would that experience be like?
Having that vibe, knowing they're actually doing it from the heart.
Goes back to love, right? Interesting. How do we design a system on love? Powerful. In thinking about your overall experiences, we've all had some chances to talk earlier, and we have these people watching us like we're in a fishbowl today, and really listening to what you all have to say. What are your final thoughts about breaking barriers and making people's lives better?
I honestly think by opening communication between all of us, like be it service provider to service provider or service provider to service receiver, figuring out how we can all make it a little bit easier for all of us to do our jobs and come together, it would help us provide more effective resources to everybody. It would make it so that we wouldn't have to play phone tag and go from place to place, and that you wouldn't have to constantly redirect our calls and change lines. Figuring out how we can all work together in order to make those resources more tightly knit, so that we know that, oh, someone comes here with this specific problem, these are the people that can help, and that we can redirect them throughout our communities.
So like Beck was saying, communication is a big one, and consistency. Consistency is very big.
Consistency in communication? Yeah.
And what also would be helpful is having a good social worker that cares and that's willing to take, I mean.
It's okay.
It's all right, Mom. It's okay.
I don't know, but yeah, just a basic good social worker that's willing to go the extra mile to help families out so we could exit the system with success. And that's just how I feel, so.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think having somebody that cares, you need somebody that cares to make change.
Yeah. Well
And
said.
love is the key.
So, yeah, you could give them an applause. So I have a question for you as audience members, totally going off script, is how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but think about this. You just spent the last hour or so in your teams, in your community, with your community members, talking about your plans for breaking barriers. How many of you talked about love in that conversation and about building systems that are based on love? How many of you have love written into your plans? How can we quantify love in system development? I just want to say thank you to the four of you for having this conversation and being brave enough to share in front of a room full of people that are doing work in systems that you've interfaced with and interacted with. And I appreciate the wisdom that you've brought. I think the things I walk away with beyond how do we redesign systems that are rooted in love is really how do we bring young people to the table, parents to the table, family members to the table, in the designing or redesigning of our system. How do we identify barriers is by bringing voices to the table. And each of you have contributed to that today, and I just want to honor you for that. I also walk away thinking about how do we design a system that has navigators in schools and in communities who are those trusted people that you all would turn to in tough times, the Dans of the world, so to speak,
Oh, yeah.
right? The advocate that you've experienced, Alyssum for you, another awesome advocate. So I think the challenge for all of you today is to think about what you've learned from not just our living room conversation, but I think it's reflective of what others have said throughout the day. So also thank you to our audience members for thinking about how you can break barriers in your community and do a better job to lift all of us up, because our well-being is interconnected, and so I think we need to always remember that as well as we go out and do this work.